Hi, welcome back. Today we are doing our tips and techniques on how to improve emotional well-being, and I'm very delighted to announce that this week I have Annette Brown with me, and she's the Community Learning Manager for Kingston Adult Education, and she focuses on improving the mental well-being of people. So she does lots of amazing work. So welcome, Annette.
Thank you. Thanks very, very much for having me, Giselle.
Absolute pleasure. So the reason why we're going to be having a chat today is this is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and the topic, the theme of it is kindness. So we're going to chat about kindness and how kindness can really help improve emotional well-being. So we're going to just start off by talking a bit about the obvious ideas about kindness, and we often have a think, don't we, that kindness is always about going towards others. So there's lots of things we can do to help be kind to others, isn't there? What ideas do you have, Annette, for that?
I think the most obvious ones at the moment are about reaching out to neighbours, that you wouldn't necessarily do because you're running around, whether you're working or with children. And I think that's been really apparent for so many people. It's opened up a world of, I would say, for example, I work full time. When I had children and I was at home, I used to see all the old people. There's quite a lot of older people where I live, and I would always pop in or, make time to talk. But then, not that I stopped, but I wasn't doing it as much. But now I'm working from home, I'm able to do that. And there is a certain pleasure in being able to get a few, things from the supermarket, or giving a piece of cake, or just actually talking outside their window. So it kind of it gives you a good feeling, but that it's actually making those people feel less isolated because they don't necessarily have family around.
Yes, because kindness adds to connection, doesn't it? And I have to say, I'm helping a couple of neighbours out, and we're all getting on really well. We've become really good friends. We have nice chats. One gave me some tomato plants, which is absolutely brilliant. It's sort of when you give kindness, it's amazing what you get back, and it's that lovely feeling, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think through it sort of gives you a bit of purpose as well, doesn't it? So
it does, and then you ask yourself, why didn't I do that before? It's but it's interesting because one of our neighbours, he's got 4 children, but they all live a long way away. And I bumped into his son yesterday, who was leaving something at his dad's door, and he's a beekeeper. So he gave me a jar of honey.
Oh, amazing.
So, because he didn't need to be grateful to us because we're getting a lot of pleasure, looking out for his dad. But so it kind of just evolves. And I got talking to him, who I never normally talk to. So it is that ripple effect, really. It sounds
it really is. It is. And I think it's how it is, isn't it? If you give out some real good, it knocks on to the next person. And the same. So you've had a bad day and you're driving along and like at somebody else, and they just say, "Oh God, that's not a very nice person." I feel cross about that. The negative emotions can ripple out as well, can't they?
Absolutely.
So we sort of have that choice, don't we? About
and there is, and it doesn't have to even be a practical. It doesn't have to be going down to the shops, because maybe you can't go down to the shops, but it could be just passing the time of day. Smiling at them. And my mum always used to say that if you're walking. Coming from Ireland as well, we talk to everybody, but if you're walking past someone at the bus stop, and especially an older person, if you sort of smile at them and say hello, that can actually be the only contact they've had all day long, and that can actually make a massive difference to their mental health. And then they may be more cheerful with the next person they meet. So it is that ripple effect. So it's really, really important to be aware of it. It's a bit of a responsibility, but it's really important to be aware of that.
And also it helps your relationships within your own home as well, doesn't it? Kindness.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can forget to show kindness to people where we are sort of sharing our environment with, we can get too caught up in the daily turns of life, and just be kind within our relationships helps boost those, and it ripples out in your home.
Yeah, I think that actually one of the things that I would say is that generally when I'm at work, I'm, reasonably pleasant and, will do everything for anyone. And then I get home from work and then I'm, can be quite grumpy, actually.
Really? I can't believe you've been grumpy, Annette.
Believe me. That would be endorsed very much by my family. But actually, because we're at home, and although I'm still working, really, it's so busy, but you have got time to actually spend with those, members of your family, and they might be going through something. So it's just little things. Whether it's not even coming out with advice, but just listening, having time to listen is really important. So maybe, maybe for me, I will have learned I've really enjoyed, that it can put strain on your families all being together, but it's about sort of making allowances for everybody and treating them with kindness too, not just the people that you come face to face with at work or whatever.
Yeah, it's getting to understand the reasoning behind the behaviour, isn't it? We can be quite critical and annoyed or whatever what someone's doing, but if we sort of think about what the intention is behind it, or maybe what fear within them is developing that. So kindness really is about empathy, isn't it? Absolutely. And being able to understand what somebody else's experience is, or stepping out of your own personal experience and into their own.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, particularly, I mean, I've got 4 sons, and so boys, and it sounds stereotypical, but don't tend to talk about their feelings so much. But it's almost, it's allowing them not to talk about their feelings, but also being there to facilitate that. And when they are being, a bit grumpy or difficult or whatever, reminding them, again, it's a bit cliche saying, but it's okay not to be okay. I think that's something that we really need to bring forward. And mental health was becoming, very much up in the forefront before lockdown, but we know that actually things aren't going to get better. We've just got to really look after our mental health and those that are around us, and have a certain sort of responsibility to be able to open those dialogues when we can, not forced, but when we can.
And I think when we're being kind to each other, it makes that so much more possible. I mean, if you're treating each other with contempt or criticism or annoyance, you're not really opening it up to allow somebody to sit down and say, well, actually, I'm feeling this or that. And are you? It's a totally different. So you're closing that door rather than giving that offering.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to remember is that, especially when you're working, it's very hard to work from home, and you're not necessarily going to be able to be, you don't have that journey to work, which I think is a really good way to unwind. I always find, because I walk to work and walk home, but you don't have that buffer, you don't have that barrier. So it's almost like making allowances. People are going to maybe have, worse periods in the day than others. My cousin calls it the COVID day. So, it's okay to have those days or those afternoons. You're suffering a bit, but then you pick yourself up and then you go on. I think it's really important to know that.
Yeah, I think my mantra through the whole thing is just, this will pass.
Yes.
So this situation will pass eventually, but even just on a more small thing, there'll be days. Most days I'm really positive and I'm just sort of plowing forward with all my many things I do. But some days I sort of go, oh my God, this is mad.
I know.
I do not notice how mad this is, and I just sort of get whacked by it. I allow it and I acknowledge it, and I might feel it for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, but I know that feeling will pass.
Yeah,
and I'll carry on.
Absolutely. And I think that if you acknowledge it, it does allow you to move on. Because for this morning, I felt like I was, I don't know whether it was the weekend and I was maybe particularly chilled at the weekend, but this morning I really struggled to get going. I felt like I was walking in cement. So I sat outside for half an hour. Lovely. And it was brilliant, because although of course there was that guilt, I should be working, I actually was I did feel a little bit sleepy because it was very warm out there, but I've come back in and I actually feel, okay, I'm ready to take it on today. So I think you need to take more frequent breaks for yourself when it's right for you. And even when it's not, you don't think you need one, you still need to get up and walk around.
And this comes down around to exactly the right thing, is the most important kindness of them all is to yourself. Absolutely. Because if you're not kind to yourself, you're going to knock yourself out. You're not going to be able to be patient with other people. You're not going to be able to help others. So the first port of call has to be self-care and looking after yourself. I mean, I'm always, everything I ever teach, every course I run, every client I ever see, anything I ever do, always, everyone I say, are you looking after yourself? It is absolutely fundamental.
It is. And I think it's very easy. In fact, a friend of mine said that the other day. It's very easy to say, yeah, I'm looking after myself, but actually you're not. And I think one of the things, again, especially at the moment, but it applies to life in general, is that, ask yourself, when you make a mistake or you mess up, how do you treat yourself? I mean, Giselle, how would you, if you make a mistake, what do you do? How do you initially treat yourself?
I initially go, you stupid person. That's the first thing I say, which is just, if someone from the outside said that to me, I would feel so awful. Yeah. It's a terrible, terrible way to speak.
Well, I mean, we're our own worst, best actually inner critic. We are so good at, then quite often then, I mean, that's the time when you might be ruminating and going on, and actually that's really, really got a really negative impact to your, your keeping good mental health. That's actually practicing poor mental health. So it's really important that you think, you turn it around and think, what would you do if a friend made a mistake? How would you speak to them? How would you speak to them, Giselle? If I really messed up, what would you do? How would you treat me?
I would just say, that doesn't matter. Let's work out what you can do from then onwards. And I think for myself, I've learnt that. My first thought is, you stupid woman. Why did you think that? But then my next thought is, okay, what can I do to learn from this? How can I move on from this? What is it I need to do to move forward? So I think that's almost like a default thought from many years. I've really trained myself for that growth mindset. So that idea of, actually, a mistake is something that can be celebrated if you learn from it and you move on from it.
My children at school, the head teacher used to have these mantras: a mistake is only a mistake if you don't learn by it. So it is really important. And but I think particularly as parents, or maybe as sons or daughters, if we make a mistake and we feel it's had an impact on our parents or our children, we do tend to continually beat ourselves up about it. It's that sort of that guilt, and it's really important not to do that. You have to take that forward. If I know with friends, when they've maybe made a mistake, I've taken them out for a coffee, or bought them some flowers, and maybe you have to physically do those things for yourself to enable you to, I hate the word heal, but to heal. It's so important. The other thing is that because we tend to do that, we have to allow ourselves to say, as you said, I did this, how could I improve it, move on. It is very difficult depending on the circumstances, but one of the things for resilience is that what we should be doing when we talk about positive thinking and we say, name the 3 good things that have happened every day. What we really need to be doing is celebrating at least once a week, if not more. What are your qualities? To remind yourself of what your qualities are. Because if I was to, generally, I mean, when we run the courses, when learners really hate it when I say, I want you to identify 3 really good things about yourself that you like. Some find it okay, but
most people find it really hard, don't they?
Yeah.
And you have to also say, what would a friend say about you? They can only...
But almost it's and I'm a bit older, but you certainly weren't encouraged to celebrate what you were good at, because you'd be thought of as being a bit headed or big-headed, or ahead of yourself or whatever. So you didn't tend to talk about the things that you were you're good at. You talked about the things that you needed to improve or weren't good at. So it is actually changing a mindset for so many of us. So it's really important to, not worry about the fact that,
I'm just going to shut my window. Someone is doing something very loud. Carry on talking.
Okay. But it's really important to try and identify those things and think to yourself, I am actually good at that, because when you start to tell yourself that will make you feel better about yourself and enable you to take on other things. So I would say that is probably the most important tool, for you to avoid yourself beating yourself up when things go wrong, is to say, yep, I messed up there, but I am good at this, and allow also, when people sometimes give, I'm very much like this. If someone gives me a compliment, I go, not at all. Oh no, it was nothing. But actually, have the grace to say, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually really like that. But again, it's not because you're ungrateful. It's just because, you're coy and you're embarrassed, and you don't, as I say, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But
it's about sort of believing in ourselves, isn't it? And if you could acknowledge your good points and your strengths and your qualities, it comes down to believing in who you are. And we have sort of these core belief systems, and we often, that some of the core negative belief systems we have is we're not good enough, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not worthy. And if you live your life from that core belief, that even some very, very successful people will be being successful because they're trying to prove all the time that they're good enough. So when do you ever actually stand back and think, wow, that's really good, I've achieved this, I'm really happy with this? It's quite a stressful way to exist.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's that sort of fine balance, because there are people out there that think very highly of themselves.
Yes, and so they're often not quite shouldn't quite be up there. But it's also about being delusional, is it?
Yeah.
And I think it's about seeing it all, and actually having good mental health is about recognizing all of it. It's about feeling the good emotions and the not so nice emotions. It's about recognizing your strengths. It's also about recognizing what could be improved, or maybe where you're not quite so strong. It's not just one, is it? It's actually being able to get the picture of all of it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, as teaching practitioners, we, at the end of a lesson, because you've got nothing else to do, but it's very important you reflect on, what went well, what, didn't go so well, but then making a plan forward. And I think in life you can do that. It's okay to do that. And if you've had if everything has been fine, you don't need to start picking faults in it just because that's the nature of it. But just always focus on that, that positive thing first. It's very important, and I think it's a really good lesson for our children, because little children quite often are they're eager, and they're quite confident. They've got no inhibitions, and as they start to get older, they start becoming aware, and it happens. No, they're not as good as this one in the class. That is life, but it's about helping them. I mean, it's all about reflective learning, actually saying, I'm not so good at that, but I am really good at singing, and I can really, and I know that sounds a bit patronizing, but it's
also about saying, I'm not good at that yet.
Yes.
It's not the black and white thing of, am I good at it or not good at it? Because that, it is really, I'm not good at that yet. And if I work hard at it, I could get better at this.
That's right. It's a very, very powerful word, a little 3-letter word, yet. It's used a lot in schools, actually. I can do this, I can do this, I'm struggling with this, can't do this yet. And then you put your goal. And I think that, that's very important. It's a very, very important life skill.
Yeah. And it's one that we need to practice, I think, throughout our lives.
As adults, we definitely do. What happens?
Oh, I don't know. We get battered down. What else do you think people can do to look after themselves? I always, my number one priority for me is sleep. Because if my sleep is wrong, everything else deteriorates. Because I have a long list in my head of all the things I need need within my life to ensure that I am working my best. I don't mean just at work, but just as a person. But I know that because that includes exercise, and it includes the food I eat, and it includes the mindset I have and all of that, I know that if my sleep is out, then everything else deteriorates.
I agree with you. I mean, sleep is very important. There was something, I'm always half a story, but there was something on the television the other day about COVID and sleep, and how important it is, you know, because there is this vicious cycle, because some people are maybe anxious, they're not sleeping as well as they did, but actually getting into a good sleep routine is so important, because it can actually prevent you getting COVID, or something to do with the immune system, and it releases, you know, sleep releases other, you know, like endorphins and all sorts of things that helps prevent it. And even if you get it, you're less likely, if you've had a good sleep routine, I suppose it's all about mental health as well, you're more likely to be able to push that disease away. Now, of course, you know, that you know, if you've got massive underlying health problems, there may be issues, but that was a bit of research and I should have written it down and been able to tell you, but of course I didn't.
I'm a big picture person, I'm happy with that. And that makes a lot of sense. My knowledge about what sleep does and how it impacts our physical body and our emotional health, that it makes absolute sense to me.
It does. I mean, we've talked before about gut health, and you know, and about how important it is for your mental health, that it has a massive impact. But going back to your question, I think one of the things that about being kind to yourself is actually immersing yourself in things that you love to do. I just think it's so important.
I mean, I can give up homeschooling then.
Absolutely. Your kids will be delighted. Your kids will be delighted. Yeah, there's several things I don't love to do, but I just think that in this time, you know, some people have got, my friend pointed out yesterday, I was chatting to her, socially distanced, I have to say, that, you know, I was saying that I was kind of okay with the way lockdown was, because I'm able to work from home, I'm seeing my family more, and, you know, the days are still going by and it's fine. So I've got no desire necessarily to get out. But some people who don't have a routine like that are going to be really struggling. So one of the things is, it's about distraction. Again, it's always going back to the way that you would treat a child. That, you know, if a child is really unhappy, you spend your, you know, if they fall over, you distract them. You know, you're trying to distract them. And what you're really trying to do is distract yourself. But not in a negative way, but distract yourself into doing something that you love to do. So maybe do something that you love to do, you know, take out, you know, if you think about it, all the ladies that have got their sewing machines out now and are making PPE, you know, there's so, if you look at the chat groups, there's getting such pleasure. There's one lady that I know that hasn't taken her sewing machine out for about 10 years, and she's made God knows how many things, and she's loving it. So that's
that's ticking two boxes. It's connection, it's purpose, it's creativity, it's giving her distraction, it ticks. So, and the way I see it, I always call, so when you're doing something you love, to feeding your soul. I think we get so caught up in our to-do lists and our shoulds and our improving with work and making sure everyone else is happy, but it's all reasons why we have to do it. I think sort of something you love and something that's feeding your soul, it's not because of any financial gain or anything like that, it's just because you just love it.
I mean, the funny thing about this particular lady that I was talking to, she was quite good at making clothes and things, and it spurred her on, and she said that now she's looking at, you know, maybe life after making masks and, you know, PPE and all of that sort of stuff, that she's going to maybe start making things for her niece, you know, and so it's, you know, she's just got, because she said that she could while away the day just sewing and doing something, isn't it? It is
very mindful. You have to focus on it. I can imagine. I mean, I'm no sewer, but I imagine that, you know, you're focused and the hours just must go by so quickly.
And you can see progress. I'm making a blanket. I'm not a good knitter, but I can do plain and pearl, and I'm making a blanket for my son. And we're calling it a COVID blanket. It's straight at the edges. I don't think I've dropped any stitches, but there are a couple of little holes where I think it's been loose. But I love that in the evening. You know, it's just stripy. It's just different colour stripes, and we're calling it the COVID blanket. But you know, it's something for me. It's mindful at the end of the day that I like doing, and I hadn't been knitting for a long time. And I think it's about finding something that you love to do and immersing yourself. And it may be that, you know, some of us have been so busy doing other stuff, we haven't really got any hobbies, and it's rediscovering stuff. And if you've got access to the internet, and I think obviously the internet is massive for some people, you know, there are different apps that you can do. Duolingo, learn some Italian. You're not going to get to Italy anytime soon, but you know, just actually finding things maybe that you used to like doing. There's so many tutorials out there, you know, dusting off, you know, finding whatever it, you know, whether it's gardening or whatever, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, or even if you've got a balcony, you know, try ordering some seeds or something. And again, seeing something grow, you get great purpose out of that. So it is about immersing yourself and discovering hobbies, you know, that maybe you had, or that new ones that you want to take up.
Yeah. And the connecting in with nature as well is a really big one. I think a lot of people have realised that, and to realise that you can just spend that time, even if you can't leave your house, you can still notice it, you can still look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for those people that are isolated or shielded or can't get out. But maybe, you know, it could be that you could ask somebody to bring something in for you. I mean, one of the things is that, you know, that we haven't really spoken about is that doing things for others is really important. But when you do something for someone, you get great sense of achievement. What we tend not to do is ask for help.
No.
Why is that? You know, is it pride? Is it because we're
annoying?
Yeah, or is it we're scared someone's going to say no? And I think what you have to tell yourself is that if somebody says they can't do something for you, then that's okay too. That, you know, they're brave enough to be able to say no, I can't do it. But if you turn it round and think that when somebody asks you to do something, you get some pleasure out of it. It might be that by asking someone to do something, you are giving them a sense of purpose and giving them the chance to feel good about themselves, because they feel they've whatever it is, gone to the shops and got some seedlings for you or whatever it is. So I think it's about being brave enough to ask for that help, and you're doing your duty by giving somebody a chance to feel good about themselves. There are so many people that don't feel that they are connected, or they don't feel particularly useful in society, and that can actually, you could be introducing something to them and saying, look, you know, moving on after COVID, they might then decide to volunteer because actually they realise how good it makes themselves feel as well.
You never know what the result is going to be out of an action. Just like the lady you were talking about with her sewing machine, and that it's moving on to other things, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're going to be going into a whole new world when we eventually all come out of our houses, and it's going to take a while. But I think with the right help and accepting help from people and not being too proud, even if it's somebody listening to you or whatever, maybe there's going to be some positive stuff. There's a lot of very, very sad, terrible things that are happening at the moment, but it's about us making opportunities for ourselves. And when you're in a dark place, that's very difficult to do. Sometimes that's very difficult to do. So it's breaking it down, just little steps to try and find some light, but being kind to yourself. You know, it's okay if you're having a COVID day. as my cousin would say, it's your COVID day today. But it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. We've said that before, but it's about then having those resilience tools to be able to move on and say, okay, today's not a good day, but tomorrow I'm going to do such and such.
And I think if you are in that dark place and it's a hard place, when you set yourself a goal of what you're going to do the next day, keep it a small, really achievable thing. Even if it's, I'm going to cook myself a decent meal, or I'm going to clear out that drawer or something. And if you achieve anything else, it's an added bonus.
Yes,
because I think the danger a lot of people get into is, right, I've got my long list and today I'm going to achieve this. And then you get through half of 3 of them, don't achieve any of it, and then just can say to yourself, oh God, I'm rubbish, that's terrible, and it brings you back down.
I think that's very right. I actually, my mum died a couple of years ago, and I have brought most of the stuff to my house because I didn't have the mental capacity to be able to go through it, because emotionally I wasn't able to. And I remember my brother saying, look, we're either dumping it or take it. So I took it. So our loft, in fact, my son's bedroom is full of boxes, and I hadn't had the time. And what I realised was that I didn't even want to go up there because there were so many boxes. So at the weekend, I allow myself 1 box. And if I get through that box, that makes me feel so much better. Even if I just take it downstairs and, got some box set on the TV and going through it, that then sometimes inspires me then to do another box. But it's about breaking it right down so you think, I can do that. Then I'm going to treat myself with some cake or whatever it is. Not that I'm advocating that, but it's always good. And but yeah, it's about breaking it down so you know that it's achievable. It's absolute. And do you know what? If you can't do that box, that's fine. Do it the next day.
Exactly. It is. It's how we're talking to ourselves, which is so important, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's changing the word from should to could.
Could.
Yes. I think it's so different. Oh, I should be doing that. It's really harsh, isn't it? And it's critical, it's judgmental. But if you kind of say, well, I could do it, you're sort of thinking, well, there's an element of choice in there. And it's such a softer way to speak to yourself.
It is. And I think the other thing about it, and, is that if you don't treat yourself with compassion, there are some people that would judge others, not everybody, and they're not necessarily, because you're so hard on yourself. And as you said, Giselle, rightly, if you're saying you should, and we're supposed to be acting like this and we're supposed to be acting like that, and you may actually have that way in the way you treat the people that you work with. Well, you should be doing that. You should be doing that. I was able to do that. Joan was able to do that. Why can't you do that? So it's about actually not always, I think using the word should needs to go completely, and saying I could, or I'm planning to do this. And, maybe those sort of productivity managers would totally disagree with me, but I think particularly at the moment, that's what we need, that we really need to be saying that to ourselves. My friend sent me something the other day about how we could work in COVID, and about just not having this, just because Anne is dealing with something in a certain way doesn't mean to say that Elizabeth is going to be able to deal with it in that way. So the should needs to definitely come out of it.
I agree. Oh, well, thank you so much. That's been really lovely. I love chatting with you.
It's a pleasure and an honour, Giselle. Thank you very much for asking.
And I'm sure that everyone listening to that will have got so much from what you've had to say. So thank you very much. And make sure you're kind to yourself too.
And you too, Giselle. I'll be checking in on you. Thank you.
Cheers, Annette. Bye.